This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop on research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared by students, faculty, alumni, and other members of the USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma, Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And hi, my name is Sophie. I'm your other co-host. I'm a senior studying computer science and doing my master's in engineering management.
All right. And joining us is a new face, a new voice to the podcast. So special guest surprise host, you want to jump in and introduce yourself? Let everybody know who you are, where you're from.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Gettleman. I'm a freshman. I'm studying chemical engineering. This is the first podcast that I've recorded.
Very cool. And Sophie, and where are you from?
Oh, yeah. I'm from Chicago.
From Chicago. Very cool. So this is your first year. You are in your second semester at USC. Before we dive into any of this other stuff, let's ask you a couple questions. How is it going? What has your first year been like?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really great so far. First semester was a little rough. I've never moved before. And so flying across the country and moving into college was definitely a transition. But second semester, I've really adjusted and it's really been going a lot better. So that's been awesome.
So I think that I can never, overstate how challenging it is to move to college. And people tell me oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. I went to camp. I'm like, it's not like that. Did you ever go to camp, Sophie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you help explain to high school students that think it'll be fine, I've been to camp, that it's not fine and it's actually hard? Can you describe the differences?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a big part of it is just kind of the difference in how long you're there for. When I went to camp, I only went for a week or two, and this was just such a large I'm gonna be here for months, and I'm bringing all of my things, and going home now means going back to my dorm, and it was just different, definitely. And I think a big thing,
has that been a flip? Do you actually say that when you're with your parents in Chicago? Do you say, now I got to go home, and you flipped the definition of home? Is that what you just said?
It's definitely weird. Sometimes I'll find myself doing that, and I'll be like, this is weird, because I still in my head think of home as back in Chicago, but definitely when I'm talking, I'll be like, oh, I have to go home, and I mean my dorm, and that's definitely just it's just kind of funny, to be honest.
I feel like something in me will constantly still say my apartment. I don't know why. I think when all my friends were moving out, they would say home when they were referring to their dorms, and it made me a little anxious.
It's
I was
weird.
No, everyone's leaving. Yeah, it is so weird. So I still stay my apartment for some reason.
Yeah.
What was what if you could sum it up? I mean, or what were some of the things that were what were the things that were challenging that were unexpected? What were the little things?
I mean, I definitely knew coming out here that talking to my parents, I'd still be able to do that over the phone. When I would talk to my mom about how her experience in college was, she was the biggest thing was kind of they didn't have cell phones. So talking was not something that was as easy. But the thing I didn't expect was that the time difference would be such of a thing. And by that, I just mean I'm definitely more free later in the day. But when it's 8 p.m. my time, it's 10 p.m. there. And my parents might be going to bed, or they're not really free. So it was definitely an adjustment there, because it's oh, I'm done with my stuff, and suddenly it's 11 p.m. and they're asleep, and I can't talk to them, and that's kind of what I was looking for.
I wonder if it's harder specifically in your generation, because the the perception of ease to communicate with someone has been persistent through your entire life.
Yeah.
The idea of always being able to be in contact with someone 24/7 has never not been a thing. And so you think, well, yeah, I'm just going somewhere else. Why would that not change? But then also there is this you're also just not around them. You don't see them. They're not in your schedule. They're not in your sphere at all. And that becomes a really interesting dynamic that makes it kind of hard. When you adjust to the rigor of college, I'm assuming that was a little bit of a leap too. And maybe it's not rigor, but it's pacing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, my high school like I was taking a lot of AP classes
Sure,
and
yeah.
like my workload was really heavy. And so to be honest, like coming into my first semester, a lot of the classes that I was taking were like not necessarily like complete repeats, but there were definitely parts of the class in the beginning where I was like, okay, like I've learned this,
There were
which
things
was
that
helpful.
resembled stuff that you had gone over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was helpful because it made it like instead of me having to balance everything else going on and also learning incredibly new difficult content, it was like that was a little easier there. Um, but yeah, I think definitely one of the big things is that like my schedule for a semester, there were a lot like more gaps in between classes.
Hmm.
And so it was weird because I would like have a class and then like have an hour and it's like, well, what do I do with that hour? And like kind of figuring out like how to manage my time and be like, okay, well, I can do this and I can do this and I can do work was definitely part of the adjustment that like took a second.
Sophia, how do we tell her that the easy classes are in the first year just to get her settled, and next year she's in for the rude awakening of actual college
Yeah.
classes?
I feel like everyone, when they get here, I had the same thing where it's like, oh, like this resembles stuff that I've definitely done in high school. And then you get to your first, I think it was like my first actual programming class, and I was like, wait, what is going on? Like the gap between high school and my first, like what I call my first college class was a whirlwind. And I feel like that's something that high school students don't often anticipate. I feel like, especially if they're in rigorous classes, during high school, they just assume that it'll be the same because they're labeled as like college classes, even though they're college prep classes. So
Hmm.
sometimes that disparity shows. It definitely keeps getting more challenging, but you also adjust at a more exponential rate the further into college you go,
You're also
is
ready
what I
for it.
think.
You're also ready for it
Yeah.
at that pace. Like basically trust the
Yeah.
process. It gets incrementally challenging, but then oddly enough, exponential increases start to get absorbed in an incremental way, if that makes sense. You're like, oh, I'm used to
Mhm.
exponential increases.
Yeah.
I get
So
this
it
now.
becomes easier in a sense, but not because it's actually easier.
It's because you're getting stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, very cool. Chemical engineering. How did you choose chemical engineering as your program?
Yeah, I've always really loved chemistry. I took AP chemistry my sophomore year of high school, and that was like one of the first classes where I was really like, wow, like everything I'm learning here is new, everything I'm learning here is interesting. Like I really love being able to like pursue this. And that just kind of stayed with me. I really liked doing labs in my high school, and I really, as I started like doing research for kind of like where I wanted to go to college and what I wanted to study, I kept coming back to like sustainability and
Yeah.
researching about carbon capture and researching about a lot of these huge problems that are kind of like in our
Yeah.
society today. And I found myself feeling really like I want to do something about that. And I was like, with chemical engineering, I can definitely pursue like the sustainability route. I can look into like renewable energy and kind of like moving away from fossil fuels. And also, if that like doesn't work out, like why I didn't kind of pick the more specific environmental engineering, I still have other, I mean, you always have other options, but I felt like chemical engineering would kind of give me a chance to explore there and still stay connected to like
That's
science,
great.
I guess.
That's great. And then my last question, then we'll get into your actual topic. How yesterday it was pretty warm. How many people did you text back home or FaceTime back home that are like, how's February in Chicago?
Yeah, it's crazy because like I don't know if you were like, I mean, you probably don't follow the temperatures in like Chicago, but it's
I
been
don't.
really cold. It's been really cold. And like yesterday, it was like, I don't know, it was maybe in like the 40s there. And my brother, like I was texting him, I was like, oh my God, like it's in the high 80s here. And my brother was like, yeah, it's in the 40s. I didn't have to wear a coat. And I was like, yeah. Like it's just so like surreal. Like it didn't really hit me in first semester that like that was like so different, but now I'm like it's February and I'm like going to the beach tomorrow. Like this is crazy.
Well,
Awesome.
it's cooling down dramatically. So don't for
Yeah.
the beach tomorrow, it's gonna be kind of cold. It's gonna be like
Yeah.
in this low 60s here at the
Yeah.
beach. So we'll tell you. But maybe, I don't know, from Chicago, I've seen Chicago kids get out of the beach at 50s and they think it's great.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, it's great.
it's
Yeah.
a whole other world. So
Yeah.
too cold for me. What is this episode that you brought to us today?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking, like, when I was thinking about, oh, like, I'm making a podcast, like, what can I really talk about? And one thing that's been really, like, I guess, kind of big to my experience here at USC has been that I am involved in CURV, which
Mm,
stands for the Center for Undergraduate Research. Viterbi Engineering. It's a fellowship where it connects students with a mentor and they kind of get the hands-on experience of like working in a lab and assisting PhD students and kind of getting a start to figuring out like kind of what research means in an academic sense.
Very cool. Why don't we get out of the way? Hand it right back over to you, Sophie, to be able to talk a little bit more about research and what it means to research as an undergraduate student and the specifics related to the Curve program, which is a great opportunity. Not the only opportunity to do research as an undergraduate, but one way to do research as an undergraduate. And then we will pick up the conversation on the back end where we have other things to chat about. And probably the most important thing we have to chat about, which is Oscars weekend here in LA. And we need to talk about all the movies that Safia has not seen. And so we will
Yep.
get into that right after this.
Hi, I wanted to spend some time talking about CURVE, which stands for the Center for Undergraduate Research in Viterbi Engineering Fellowship. This is an opportunity that I myself applied for over the summer and received, and I wanted to get some other student perspectives on how their experience in CURVE has been and what they've gained from being able to do research as an undergrad. Just in general, Curve is a program that provides an opportunity for Viterbi undergraduate students to explore research opportunities early on in their academic careers. What Curve does is it places Viterbi undergrads in research labs so that they can gain hands-on experience on faculty-led projects. Curve fellows receive stipends and participate in professional development opportunities that prepare them as future leaders in engineering. Students in Curve are expected to go into lab about 7 hours per week, and they're required to do monthly updates about their progress, which will all culminate in a presentation about their work at the end of the year. Over the summer, I got an email about applying for Curve, and I was really interested in gaining research experience. Over the previous summer of my junior year, I actually worked with a lab at a university local to me, and I was really interested in doing that now that I was officially in college. And so I submitted an application, and I was kind of like, oh, like, if this doesn't go anywhere, that's okay. But um, a couple months later, I heard back that I had actually gotten accepted and gotten matched with the Sharada lab. And I just kind of wanted to take a minute to talk about what I do in my lab and kind of how that experience has been for me before we get to talking with some other friends of mine who are also doing work in different labs on campus. The lab that I got matched with is called the Sharada Lab, and it's led by Dr. Shama Sharada. And our main goal is to develop and utilize quantum chemistry and molecular dynamic methods to establish in silico design principles for molecular supported and photocatalysts. The project that I helped work with over first semester and now into my second semester is the organic photoredox catalyst design for CO2 reduction. And this focuses on the process of taking carbon dioxide, which is a neutral molecule, and reducing it to CO2 minus, so adding an electron, which can then be used to make value-added products. And this effectively removes carbon dioxide from the air. And this is really valuable to combating rising levels of greenhouse gases and excess carbon dioxide in the air. And what our lab focuses on is using organic photoredox catalysts to do this process. And the cool thing about my lab that I didn't really know what that meant before I got into it, but my lab is a theoretical lab. So instead of, I feel like when people picture labs, they kind of picture like a bunch of test tubes and lab coats and TPE, and really that's not what my lab is. So my lab is, as I said, it's a theoretical lab where a lot of what we do is calculations and modeling and kind of more of a computational chemistry where we use programs like QChem and IQMol to model and then optimize and run calculations on molecules to see how they would interact in the given conditions that we give to them. So over the first semester, I spent a lot of time learning how to use these softwares and how to do various calculations. And so now, and near the end of first semester, and now I'm able to kind of start doing my own research and figuring out which catalysts are good candidates to help reduce carbon dioxide. And our lab kind of works in conjunction with a couple other labs around campus where we do calculations and we do research, and then we kind of go to these labs that are more of the like hands-on wet labs, and we say, okay, like we think this will do this, and then they take that information and they see, well, will that really happen in the real world? Another main benefit of working with Curve, apart from getting experience to do research as an undergrad, is that you get to be matched with a mentor. For me, this means that I met a bunch of PhD students who all studied chemical engineering in their undergrads. They've been able to help me out. They've had a lot of advice about what classes to take and kind of like how to do college and a lot of stuff where it's just been helpful to have more people to talk to. And it's been really valuable to learn from a mentor and then also have that dynamic of being in a lab where all these PhD candidates and PhD students are kind of working towards that goal of theirs and seeing them go along that process has been really interesting. For me in research, a really big focus of mine has been sustainability. I'm really passionate about helping save the environment, as like cliche that may sound. I really care about climate change and helping to reduce that. And I think over the summer, I was doing a lot of like just reading about carbon capture and carbon dioxide sequestration. And I think coming to USC and getting the chance to kind of actually work on that in some capacity has been really incredible and makes me excited about what I can do in the future. My advice for people who are looking to get into research and people who are interested in kind of getting that hands-on experience is when you see an opportunity, just take it. As I've said now, and as some of my friends will say later, a lot of us just kind of saw an email in our inbox and we're like, that sounds awesome, and applied. And I think sometimes what a lot of people get caught up on is wondering if they're qualified enough, wondering if they're ready, wondering if they're able to do this. And I think really taking advantage of these programs that specifically are designed to help students who haven't had experience, where they're matching you with a mentor and they're doing a lot of onboarding and they're kind of teaching you how to go through these processes, can be really valuable and really help you and set you up for success later in life when you have to do some of these things without that much support. Yeah, that was kind of my experience in Curve. I found it really valuable so far, and I'm looking forward to finishing out the semester with my lab. And now I'm going to talk to some of my friends, and they're going to talk about kind of what they do in their labs, which is kind of different from mine. First guest today is Niles Alexis, who works at the Advanced Composite Design Lab. Their goal is to attend the annual SAMPE/ASC, which stands for Society for the Advancement of Material and Process Engineering, and the American Society for Composites, International Composites Design Contest. The ACDT team has won multiple world championships in the past and have defeated top university teams, including UCLA, University of McGill, University of Tokyo, Japan, and more. The lab's university advisor is Dr. Bo Jin, who is a senior lecturer of aerospace and mechanical engineering. Niles, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, so my name is Niles Alexis. I'm an aerospace engineer. I'm from Florida, Hollywood, Florida, just south of Fort Lauderdale, if you've never heard of it. I like skateboarding, I like fishing, and I like just tinkering with things in general.
Hi there, it's Brooke, one of your Viterbi admission counselors with your mid-podcast message. I want to tell you about our year-round on-campus Visit Viterbi experiences. They're the best way to get to know more about our Viterbi programs. It's a 90-minute session focused on first-year applicants, and it includes an overview of our academic programs and admission process. It's led by one of our very own USC Viterbi admission counselors. So if you'd like to join us on campus, we would love to meet you. Please visit viterbi.link/events, that's VITERBI.link/events to reserve your Visit Viterbi experience. Now back to the podcast.
Awesome. And this is your second semester at USC. You're a freshman?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So this podcast is going to be all about Curve and kind of how different students got involved with it and kind of what their experience was with it. And so I just wanted to hear kind of from you, like, how did you hear about Curve?
So I heard about Curve, well, pretty simply, I just saw like an email about it over the summer, and I was like, oh, I'll check this out. And I thought it was pretty cool, and I applied. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. How was the application process for you? Was it pretty clear, like what was required? Did you find it pretty challenging or anything like that?
The application process for the when I was an incoming freshman was pretty straightforward, really straightforward actually. You just kind of browse the labs and then you like type up like what you want to do, then you like make a statement of intent. That part was like a little hard, but it's not that bad. It's pretty good. It took me like a week to complete. I know some people knocked it out in like 3, 4 days if you like really try. I kind of procrastinated. Like new freshman process is pretty simple, I would say.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So what lab did you get matched with?
So I got matched with the Advanced Composite Design Lab. That was my first choice. My second and third was the RoboLand Lab and the Drone Lab.
What do you do for the lab currently?
Right now, I do like mainly ply cutting. So I cut like glass fiber and carbon fiber plies, and then I do vacuum infusion. So basically, we lay up the structure, and after we lay it up, we wrap it in a don't remember if it's not, I don't remember the exact material, but we wrap it and seal it and attach it to a vacuum hose, and that basically pulls uses the low pressure to pull resin into the beam, and we leave that for like 17, 18 hours, and then we come back and let it harden, and we got our beam. So yeah, that's pretty fun.
What's the goal of the beams? Like, what's the overall work of the lab working towards?
So we have a competition in that we compete in. It's called SAMPE, and basically we're trying to hold the most weight with like the lightest beam. And the categories, there's multiple categories. We're working on the carbon fiber one, but the glass fiber one, that one you hold around 7,000 pounds. Carbon fiber is about 10,000 pounds, and you basically just have to design like the best beam and like the one that like holds the most and is the lightest and is within a bunch of certain regulations.
Is that situation supposed to replicate something in real life, or is it just like a design challenge to experiment with different materials?
Basically, it's a design challenge that's like really made uh, to get students like acquainted with composite material. Because before I came to the lab, I didn't really know how like you manufactured it or made it, but now I'm like familiar with the entire process from like raw material to finished product. So.
What are your overall goals in research, and how do you feel that working with Curb has kind of helped advance you to those goals, or has it kind of changed what your goals are?
My goals with the research, I was kind of like going in with an open mind. It has helped me get closer to my goal, just like understanding the physical and material properties of different things used in the aerospace industry. It has, yeah, it helped me get like hands-on experience, like practical experience with working with them. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah. Have you thought about what you want to do like after college? And like has working with Curve helped you explore any of those possibilities?
Curve specifically, no. But what I want to do after college is like be like an analysis engineer. So like a qualifications engineer, basically making sure that like when the CAD team spits out something, it won't explode. But yeah, basically this like RPL like shaped like.
What is it like to work with PhD students and faculty?
Okay, so we don't really work with PhD students. We work with master students mainly. Um, we basically, it's been a pretty interesting experience. One thing I noticed is that a lot of them are also pretty new to composite material, but our team lead, he's very experienced, and he basically knows he like handles a lot of the design aspect of it, and he like has clearly a lot of experience because he can tell us like if something we're doing, if we don't know if it's like objectively wrong, he can tell us, oh, like switch the position of that, or don't put that peel ply there, or you're gonna like screw up the material. But yeah, it's pretty nice. It's pretty cool, and I like the transfer of knowledge. I like, yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. What would you say the commitment level for Curve is?
It's very variable. For me, first semester, since our competition was so far out, first half of first semester, I was going in like not very much, but then this towards the second half, and now I'm going in like pretty close and sometimes over 7 hours a week. But it's pretty flexible. So for me, not for all teams, but like we have two 8 hour blocks combined. It's like 3 hours Tuesday, 3, 4 hours Tuesday, 3-4 hours Thursday, and sometimes Friday or Monday if we need to like do extra stuff. And you basically just come in when you don't have class. So it's pretty flexible, and the commitment isn't very huge. And worst comes to worst, you can just like pop in for 30 minutes and like help with the vacuum infusion or demolding or something like that. Then you'll still get like a pretty similar amount of knowledge and experience. So I would say the commitment's very big.
So, what skills have you gained from working in your lab?
So in this lab, I've gained skills working with different kinds of composite materials. So things like glass fiber and loosely woven carbon fiber have been able to we work with a lot. Additionally, we use this software called Abacus from Dassault, and we use that to simulate our beams so we don't have to do as many physical testing. As physical testing, we have to like send out our finished product to an external company, and that the turnover time for that is pretty long. So we do a lot of in-house simulation, and that has given me some composite virtual like laying like virtual it's basically skill modeling composite structures in a virtual environment in like a practical manner. So,
Awesome. Great. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing about your curve experience. And thank you so much for meeting with me today. Our next guest today is Clarice Kim, who works at the Dryden Wind Tunnel. This lab focuses on conducting research on the aerodynamics of all kinds of flying devices. The Dryden Wind Tunnel was the first to demonstrate the existence of a two-dimensional instability waves in the boundary layers that grow over surfaces such as the wing or ship's hull. Dr. Jeffrey Spedding is a principal investigator, or PI, of the lab and conducts research on the aerodynamics of low Reynolds numbers flying devices and on alternative aircraft configurations, both big and small.
Hi, I'm Clarice Kim. I'm a freshman in aerospace engineering from Santa Clarita, California. In my free time, I like to play guitar, and I'm also part of the Air Force ROTC here on campus.
Awesome. So we're just going to kind of talk about Curve and kind of what your experience has been with it. And so I just wanted to start off with, how did you hear about Curve?
I heard about Curve through an email that Viterbi had sent over the summer, and I think that's one thing that Viterbi is really great at is keeping incoming freshmen updated about the opportunities that they can take on in freshman year. So I literally just opened my email and saw that there was an application open for a research opportunity as an undergraduate, and I thought that was super interesting. So I just decided to apply on a whim.
Awesome. And how was that application process for you?
I would say the application process for me was a little bit daunting considering that I've never had an internship or research experience or just aerospace engineering experience in general. So I thought that this application process would be difficult and I would have no chance of getting in. But I would say that the questions and the entire process actually helped me to reflect back on my own experiences and my skill sets and even consider extracurriculars and things that I've been involved in high school and how I can apply that to a lab. And although I've never had experience in aerospace before, I found that the process was very insightful and gave me a lot of confidence that I am capable of undergraduate research.
What were some of the things you did in high school that you felt kind of applied to research in a college or a university setting?
Hmm. That is actually an interesting question, and I think I just found out that answer pretty recently. So in the Dryden Wind Tunnel right now, it's very detail oriented. You have to ensure that your surface areas are smooth on airfoils to test in the tunnels, ensure that you're documenting every single piece of information. And I thought coming in, I had no skills that I could applicably put to use in the Dryden Wind Tunnel. But in high school, I ran a little nonprofit sticker organization where I really had to be meticulous about the details I was making, the artwork I was creating, packaging, communicating, and all these skill sets that come with running a little small sticker business. And again, I didn't think that this was useful to me in an undergraduate research setting, but it taught me a lot of skills about being detail oriented, being very communicative, and overall just placing a lot of time and dedication towards something you're passionate about.
How would you describe what the overall goal of the lab or like what their work is trying to do?
Well, currently, the Dryden Wind Tunnel is focusing on ways to improve lift efficiency in new and novel ways. So, a previous experiment that they've done before is that they placed large subwoofers into the test sections and just blasted music at it. And just basically see how that could improve lift efficiency in certain airfoils. Surprisingly, Seven Nation Army turned out to be the song with its heavy basses that improved lift efficiency the most. So, pro tip, very interesting detail there. But currently, the Dryden Wind Tunnel is working on a more localized version of improving lift efficiency by creating a Helmholtz resonator wing, which essentially emits a certain frequency that may disturb airflow, potentially improving lift efficiency as well. In doing so, they derived a secondary experiment, which I'm working on right now, where we drilled small holes within the airfoil wings on itself to see if they would emit a certain frequency we call the Helmholtz frequency that could potentially improve lift efficiency of that airfoil as well. So a lot of interesting, very detail-oriented, meticulous stuff going on.
Awesome. Yeah, so you kind of already mentioned what work you're doing currently. But is there any more detail you want to go into about kind of what you've been doing?
In our first semester, we focused a lot on improving our coding, MATLAB, and online CADing skills in order to analyze large data files so that we can interpret results better with aerodynamic fundamentals. And with that foundation laid, our second semester, we focused a lot on mini projects that could actually improve the efficiency of the research that's going on. So for me, I'm currently working on learning how to resin print, which would actually decrease the time it takes to sand and create 3D filament prints by introducing a new alternative. And it's been awesome to really get my hands on to a new machining process that I've never tried before. And I believe resin printing will really speed up the process of creating these airfoils that we eventually put into the test sections.
Awesome. Yeah, okay. Improved literacy. How does using music to improve lift efficiency relate to like real aircraft?
So that's actually a question I asked my PI over the summer, and he basically laughed and gave me this response. So I'll just kind of echo what he said, which is essentially blasting music at a wing won't necessarily have real world applications. It's very, very hard to kind of make that possible in the real world and can't be applicable to real big aircrafts. But this also does provide a lot of insight into how you can locally control airflow in a very controlled setting. So if more than anything, more than real world application, we're more focused on the implications that it has on aerodynamics and the new things we can kind of learn from improving airfoil in a localized setting. So it's more about research and findings more than real world application, I would say.
You mentioned your PI and you've talked about your mentor before, and I just wanted to ask, like, a big part of Curve is that they match undergraduate students with older mentors. How has that experience been for you?
It's been really amazing, actually. I think, again, coming in, I really was a little bit overwhelmed by the entire process, by kind of my lack of knowledge in the aerospace industry and engineering in general. But I think when I kind of voiced that in my essays, they matched me to a lab that is specifically geared towards aerospace engineering to really get my foot in the door. And also, I got to work under mentors who were very, diligent about catching me up to speed with the other Curve members as well. And so I think that Curve has done a really great job ensuring that students are properly matched into environments that could best enhance their education here at USC and with mentors who genuinely are passionate about the research that they're doing and can carry over that passion to the students as well.
Awesome. And then let's talk a little bit more about you. What are your overall goals in research? I know you mentioned that you're really interested in aerospace, and how do you feel that working with Curve has helped advance you towards these goals, or how has it like shifted what your goals are?
A big goal that I've had throughout this entire year was to just simply ask more questions. I feel like I was very reluctant to do that in high school because, you're afraid of being looked at as dumb or stupid or kind of just incapable of understanding. And I kind of came in with that mindset. So I was very, very reluctant to ask questions and be curious. But I realized through Curve, that's truly the only way to learn and improve yourself is to kind of acknowledge where you're weak and use the help of these mentors who are very, very knowledgeable in those fields to, help you in those areas. And so I think my mentors have done a really great job at helping me towards these goals by prompting me to ask questions, by ensuring that I'm completely comprehending what's going on before I move on. And that's given me a lot of confidence in myself to be curious about these things and learn more on my own agenda.
Awesome. Um, what would you say are the most valuable skills you've gained from working in your lab?
So, I would say the skills I learned were two-pronged, either technical or soft skills. So the technical skills I picked up from this lab was CADing, coding, and designing experiments. And I think that's been really, really amazing to build my foundation as an aerospace engineer. Coming in with zero to no experience whatsoever in engineering, this has been a really, really great step in getting me adjusted to software and a lot of skills that you will have to use in industry. So I've been very grateful for that. And also, some soft skills I learned was just honestly diligence and commitment to a goal that you're collectively working towards. So for me, we are expected to dedicate around 7 hours a week to come into the lab and help with whatever is necessary. And on top of that time commitment, you're kind of thrown into the deep end with a lot of these aerospace research opportunities. So you really have to rely on others, collaborate, and essentially work toward a common goal. So I think those are the skills that I found most valuable and that I picked up the most this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned commitment and you mentioned how you find yourself dedicating a lot of time to lab. Have you found it hard to like balance that level of commitment with also your classwork?
To be completely honest, I think I was a very overachieving, is that the right word? Freshman coming in. In high school, I did so many things, so many extracurricular, couldn't even count them, but that is not the mindset you should be going into for college, is what I've learned my first semester. So, yes, I was very overwhelmed. On top of a very difficult intro to aerospace engineering course, shout out Dr. Spedding. And just kind of having to balance research as well. It was academically very challenging but so, so rewarding. On top of all that I've learned from my intro to aerospace engineering class, as difficult as it was, I feel like it was a great way to truly understand what was going on in the research field. So, more than being overwhelmed by research and that overshadowing my academics, I actually felt that my academics were foundational to what I learned in research. So, it was a very, very nice flow from what I learned in lecture to hands-on application, which I found to be very, very helpful.
Awesome. I'm really glad that worked out for you. And I guess just to end it, do you have any advice for people who are looking to get into research, whether it's curve related or otherwise?
Yes, my biggest piece of advice is to just do it. I think I had a lot of doubts holding me back coming into freshman year. And imposter syndrome is truly big in college where you're surrounded by crazy and talented people. But really don't let that stop you. I'd say if you want to do it, go for it. Turn an application. It can't hurt. So honestly, just go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and I'm really glad your curve experience is going well.
Yay, thank you for having me.
That was a couple people's experience with Curve, and I guess I just wanted to say that if you're looking into doing research, I would encourage you to apply to Curve. If you're an incoming student or if you're currently at USC, they accept applications every semester, and it's a really valuable experience. And I mean, especially for the three of us, we've only been in it now. This is our second semester, and I feel like we've all really gotten something out of it that's really valuable. And I'd really encourage you to try that out for yourself too.
And we're back. Thank you, Sophie, for bringing us that lovely episode. We haven't had a freshman on the podcast in a while, so I'm excited to see um, all the new people you're going to bring on the podcast in the next couple of years of you being a student ambassador.
Was it intimidating to record a podcast or the concept of recording a podcast?
I mean, I think when I was kind of thinking about initial ideas and I was like, oh God, like I'm gonna have to interview people that are like, I don't know, I was like, oh, like I'm gonna have to interview professors and stuff. And then I was like, or I can just pick something and kind of interview some of my friends who are also going through the same curve program that I'm doing. And that made it a lot more approachable and it made it a lot more of like a conversation than a formal interview.
Yeah, that's what it
That
should
always
be.
makes for the best episodes too. Because
When
the
you
flow's
were
so
in,
much better.
absolutely. When you were in high school, was it like, were you dead set that you had to do or you wanted to do research in college?
I mean, I definitely knew that it was something I thought it was something that I would enjoy a lot. And so
Yeah.
I definitely was like looking for schools that would offer me a ton of opportunities to get involved with that. I guess I wasn't like, oh, if it doesn't happen, like if I was like, oh, if it doesn't happen, like I guess I'd be fine because I feel like I would find something else that I was interested in. But I'm definitely glad that it worked out the way it did and I'm
Is
getting
it what you
involved.
thought it was going to be?
Definitely not. I think
That's my
especially
favorite
because
question. No
yeah,
one.
no. Especially because like my lab specifically, it's a theoretical lab. And so I
That's
guess like when I
all labs are theoretical.
yeah, but I guess like when I picture a lab, I picture like, you know, people in lab coats and like pipetting and stuff. And like this is just so completely the opposite of that. And that's been really cool to kind of explore that other side that like I didn't even know existed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the reason I bring it up, and we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, but oftentimes I think that a high school student's projection or manifestation of what they believe research is just usually it equates to like, I'm going to do hands-on work and I'm going to do something. And then what I tell them is like, yeah, that's what you do in your classes. Like you're going to be doing hands-on work. Like you've got the chemi lab there that you have spending time in your first year where the first floor of Headco, and you're going to be in there and you're doing stuff, and that's cool. And you're going to be expanding on that as you go throughout your years. And research is sometimes very theoretical. So sometimes it's just a lot of data processing and figuring out what's happening. Every project is different, right? Every project is different. Every student group, every group of students that's in there has different skill sets and what they're working on. But oftentimes it is not a surprise when people say like, "Oh, I don't like this," and that's okay. You don't have to like it.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Yeah.
a reason some people really dig it, and there's a reason a small percentage of people go on to get PhDs because that's the percentage of people that liked doing that stuff, and other people
Yeah.
liked the hands-on element. They like to go get a job. They like to get paid for what they do, and I just always want first-year students to recognize that if you don't like it, it's okay.
Yeah. No,
Not to build it up in your brain.
yeah, it was interesting looking for people to interview because there were a couple of my friends who I like knew were in Curve first semester, but like ended up really not enjoying kind
Yeah.
of what their lab was, and they like dropped it. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's definitely
And two things can
interesting.
happen. You could be in the wrong lab. And so like that's where you find someone
Mhm.
else. Maybe that concept wasn't interesting to them, and that's fine. And then people switch labs all the time. Like people, I
Yeah,
think that's the thing
definitely.
that first year students think like, oh, I've failed. No, you haven't. It's just you tried something you didn't like, and then you move on to find something you do. And it is okay to recognize that maybe you don't like research. That's okay. And recognize the work that everyone's doing here is valuable in and of itself. So that's always why I bring that up. All right. Here's the real question. Oscars weekend. Are you thinking about this, Sophie? It looked like that you were not even processing that it is the Oscars this weekend.
I honestly did not know it was Oscars this weekend. I found out 5 minutes ago when you mentioned it.
Sophie?
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't really follow a lot of that stuff. I feel like I definitely have friends that do, so it's
Yeah.
definitely been like I've been in conversation around it, but it's not really something I'm
So you
like,
don't have an Oscars ballot that you're looking at
oh,
right now, trying to
wow.
figure out
wow.
what you should be voting on or what you
Okay, I
should be
need to see this.
betting on.
Yeah, no, I don't
Let
have
me,
one
let
of
me ask you
those.
this. Let's take guesses. Ooh, this would be fun because There are one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. There are 10 movies. Don't look it up, Sophia.
Okay.
Get off your
No,
computer.
I'm trying to
No,
look at the ballot.
no,
Okay, okay,
stop.
okay. I stopped. I
I saw what
promise.
you're doing. There are 10 movies nominated for Best Picture. What's your guess on how many of those 10 you've seen this year without knowing what they are?
I think I think one.
Okay, Sophie.
I was gonna go with four, but now that you said one, I'm gonna go three.
Okay.
I'm just not a movie goer.
Okay, so let's get your fingers out. Tell me how many of these you've seen. Honora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance,
Mm.
and Wicked.
I was right.
You got
I'm
one. I
one.
know, Sophie. You got one. So you only got two, Sophie.
Yeah,
But
guess I
why did you think you had four?
I don't know. I feel like I thought I saw a decent amount of movies, and I guess looking back, I didn't. Um,
I will tell you this. I really like movies. I've only seen two of these.
What?
And
Were they also Wicked and Dune?
no, I didn't see Dune. Dune doesn't work for me.
Okay, okay.
Like I have zero interest in Dune. I tried. I tried to see Dune, the first one, and
Mm.
couldn't get through the first one. I'm not gonna
But
like.
everyone says that the first one is so bad, but you have to watch it just to get to the second.
yeah.
That's not a good incentive for me.
It's like The Office, apparently.
The Office. The Office is
Like
great. What are we
everyone,
talking
Yeah,
about?
I
no, but
love The
everyone's like the
Office. What's
first
your
season is
point?
terrible. Oh, I
I don't think it's
entered
terrible.
enemy
They're trying to find their
territory.
identity. Like they're
Yeah,
working
they
their
were
way
figuring
through
it
like who
out.
it is. Yeah, they're working it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, guys. Yeah.
But no, okay. So you Wicked. I've seen Conclave. I will tell you, fantastic. Didn't think it was going to be. I didn't know what it was going to be, but it held my attention. It is very, very cool. I'm excited for that movie.
Okay.
All right, let's see this. How many there are? Oh man, I lost it. There are one, two, three, four, five animated movies nominated for Best Animated Picture. How many of them do you think you've seen? How many of the five?
Zero.
I think one.
Okay, ready? Flow, Inside Out 2,
Oh, okay.
Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot.
Oh, when did Moana 2 come out?
That came out in December.
Oh.
It's
Okay, so
not,
I
it
saw
wasn't
one.
nominated. It's not going to be, no. You know, that was a TV show that
I did know that,
they
that they
turned it
turned
into a
into a
movie.
movie because they
Yeah.
figured out they would make more money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was automatically against it. I didn't see it. So you saw
I've
what? You
seen
saw
Inside
Inside Out
Out
too.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sophie,
I didn't see any of those.
you
I
didn't
thought
see any
Moana
of
was
them.
going to be on there. Yeah.
No.
I did read the book Wild Robot, and then like when I was younger, and I saw they were making
Supposedly,
it into a movie, and I was like, oh, and then I didn't go see it. So,
supposedly it's fantastic. I need to see it.
yeah.
I might see it before Sunday just to see how it goes.
Just to get
Let's
some
see.
accurate votes in.
Yeah. All right. This will be my last one. Let's see if this is interesting to you. Mm, I don't know who most of these people are, so maybe this isn't interesting. Let me ask you, what's the last category you want to play this game with? Do you want to do it with Best Actress, Best Actor? Do you want to do it with screenplay or adapted screenplay,
Oh, wow.
director?
I'll give it to Sophie to choose just
Yeah,
because I think I'll be terrible at all of these.
I think probably screenplay.
screenplay. Okay, original screenplay or adapted screenplay?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, these aren't going to be very interesting.
We're the wrong audience to play this with. We should have done this and tested your knowledge because you're definitely more in the loop about the Oscars.
I'm aware of it, but I will tell you, I'm looking now that I'm actually, I literally just grabbed this right before we started, thinking it would be a conversation topic. And I'm now digging into it, going, this is not very interesting.
Oh, I
Like,
thought
there's,
you would be the person to have like an Oscar party, like watch party with the
I don't do
fam.
that. I watch
Okay,
it every
okay.
year. And now what we tend to do is we print these out and then we kind of like see who we got right. Like we're
Got
like
it.
a little bit of a gambling game of who got all these right. But I'm looking at these and I'm like, yeah, I didn't see really any of these. And this is one of the like I feel like last year saw almost all of them, and this year is like, yeah, I haven't seen any of these. So there's some hardcore movies here that are a little hard to like decide they sound fun to watch, if that makes sense. Um, but I will
I
tell
feel
you,
like
go ahead.
I feel like I would have been better at this if we were doing it for the Grammys. If we were
We
doing
should have
like,
done it for the
oh,
Grammys.
yeah,
That would have been
later
good.
episode idea. It's okay. It's okay. Well, I'll
Yeah.
I'll throw it to the next year co-host as an idea.
We should have done it for the Grammys. That would have been fun. Do you think you would have predicted Beyonce winning?
No, not at all.
You just thought that she
Absolutely
would never
not.
get it, and that was just like they're not giving it to her ever.
Not even that. I just didn't think she earned, not that's mean to say. She did not earn it, but I just didn't think that she
You
was
think
the
there are
top
better albums this
competitor.
year?
Yes, very much
Yeah.
so.
It was definitely one. Maybe it's definitely one. I don't definitely. It feels as though it was one because of like a cumulative, success
Yeah,
rates across the board and not getting it previous years.
exactly.
And Taylor Swift getting
Which,
shut out. Didn't Taylor Swift get shut out?
yeah, but
I
I'm
think
not a Taylor
so.
Swift fan, so that didn't
I know
hurt
that.
me
I
too
thought you
much.
would like that. That's why I thought you would like that she got shut out.
Oh, oh. Yeah, but I was like, I expected that. I feel like the hate has been gaining slowly.
That's hate. Sophie, is there hate for Taylor Swift?
If you ask my
Drop some.
brother, he'd say yes.
But see, that's such a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
How old's your
I
brother?
get that.
15?
Yeah, he's a junior, so 16.
16? Yeah. That's a
That makes
16-year-old
sense.
response. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
because
a
he's
16-year-old.
all in the football thing, and he hates how they focus on her in the games.
Oh my God, they're giving more
Yeah,
attention
big
to
deal.
football. They brought more attention to football. How is that horrible?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man. All right, cool. Well, that's my important level of conversation. And that's it, I think, for today. Today we're wrapping up. This episode's coming out in the beginning of March. We're kind of in a no man's land for admission, and the next couple of weeks we'll have final admission decisions for first year applicants at the end of March. So we're a few weeks away from that. So right now we're just kind of just still working through those things. Other than that, thank you so much. Sophie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for bringing this episode. Sophie, always good to see you. And for you out there, thanks for listening. We will be back next week with another brand new episode of Viterbi Voices. Bye.